بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. This is a brief rundown of what I had experienced today with a group of friends as we met people, friends, Muslim brothers, children who had once upon a time seen the difficulties after the war that had taken place in Shaam. So just a few of the things that remain in the mind, of which I had made note of. We visited what is known as halls. 8 groups have, after looking at the needs of people who were affected during the war and working out different strategies to help them. So one of the halls that they put up, which really affected the heart, is known as Sala, a hall which is reserved or prepared for the preparing of clothing for the families that have been affected. Entering the hall, I saw that there was a lot of brand new clothing. The person explained that at the beginning they used to receive clothing which was old, of different sizes, different colors. It would be normally how we give our old clothing to someone. And then they saw that many of these families, they could not really use this clothing. Either the color of the clothing was not suitable for them, or the size. And in the ending, just like how we would not like to use somebody else's clothing, old clothing, these people also have a certain izzat. They said to look after the izzat of the people, for them to be happy with what they receive, they found it's better to prepare clothing for them. So the way to do that was to get their measurements taken. Either the families come to this hall and they give their measurements, and then they look at different sets of clothing that are being prepared, and what that they can choose, what design they want, what type of shoes they would want. So for them it's just like going to a shop and being able to purchase for their family. Another thing that really struck the heart was he showed us the place where there's a lot of women's clothing, and then there was a place where there were a lot of children's clothing. But the place for what we call adult men, their clothing was very small. And he explained that the reason is that from the people who are coming, the majority are women and children, because in the war, the enemy had targeted the men. They tried to wipe out an entire nation by removing the men of this nation. So there are very few men that are alive. More it is women and children. What he explained was that sometimes they have the same hall, mobile hall, that goes out into the far areas, so it's easier for the people then to take measurements. One time in summer clothing is given out, one time in winter clothing is given out. I asked him daily how many people will be entering this year to take measurements, to choose their clothing, what they like. He said plus minus about 100 families. When you say 100 families, each family normally is regarded as about 5 people in the family. He said from the records what he got in this one hall that we were in, from the time it started, perhaps in 2016 until now, his records show about 45,000 families have already taken benefit from this. I asked him how many types of halls like this you will have spread out in the area. He explained about 25 such halls. So from one, at 45,000 families, each family about 5 people, and then you times that by 25, a person gets some understanding of how much of aid has been given in the form of clothing to these people. Thereafter we went to another hall which was reserved for medicine, to give out medicine for free to those that could not afford it. I asked him what was the most expensive medicine that is given. He explained that one of the biggest sicknesses in this area is cancer. Because of the war, the fear that was created, the material that was used, a lot of cancer spread amongst the people. And because of malnutrition, another issue that they have and they have to get medicine for is for the young child, because his mother's milk cannot give him the nutrients the body needs. So they have special milk that is meant for these children to give them strength in their diets. We climbed a certain area so that we could have a view of the area around us. We found we were surrounded by tents. So it is known as Mukhayyama, the tented area. In a Mukhayyama, a tented area, There will be approximately about 1,000 families who are staying in tents in one mukhayyama. And in that area that we were, there were going to be 30 mukhayyamas. So 30 times 1,000 will be the amount of people that were surrounding us. At the beginning it was just a tent, and when we went further we really saw just a tent. And when they tried and they are able with funds etc. to upgrade, then it will become like something like a small caravan. We had the chance to visit some of those that are now giving their lives to teach in the lands of the Mubarak lands of Shaam. We had a chance to meet with some of them, and also aid was distributed to them. And then we asked one of them to speak on behalf of the group. A few things that he mentioned which really stuck to the mind was, he thanked those people who always are bringing aid to these people of Shaam, in whichever way, whether it's coming to Turkey, to the borders of Turkey, or somehow they're managing to take it into their lands. Few things he mentioned is, he said when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw a group of Sahaba radiallahu anhum were from the Ash'ari, and they were very poor, then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself was not an Ash'ari. But because he loved them, he said that I today am also an Ash'ari. Meaning I also am feeling the pain that you're feeling, so I am part of you. So he said, you people, when you all come and you all bring aid, then not only are you all giving us aid, but you all are becoming part of us also. Another thing he mentioned is, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam established Medina Munawwara, the first thing that he worried about was creating a system of brotherhood between the helper, the one who got, and the one who is receiving. The one who got was called the Ansar, the helper. The one who was receiving was called the Muhajir. Later on, the Muhajir was going to be the greater benefactor to the Ansar. But at the beginning, the Ansar needed to look after the Muhajir. He said, we are like one wall. The aid that you people are giving us will be used to create your future. The aid you people are giving us will be used to create your future. He said, these children in this land, they will grow up, and one day they will raise the banners of Islam in the world, and much of that reward will go back to the people who had funded it at the beginning. One of the teachers explained, where we normally think about a war breaking out and it's only a calamity and there could be no goodness in it, but we were not finding people who were crying and who were showing distress, people who had come from very wealthy lives, and now they were teachers, men and women. Some of those teachers that we had seen, the woman, it's something to think about how hard it is for a woman to come and to receive aid from a strange person, whether it's given in the form of an envelope or a package. But because of need and necessity, there's no men in their house that they can tell the man, you go and fetch it. There's no man. So these are muallimat, teachers. While we were driving, we even saw example. There were so many women full in parda, and they are in the back of a van. Each one is holding on to the other so no one falls out. They could either be teachers or they could be students. Life became difficult for them. But when this person spoke, instead of showing that distress and saying, you know how our life changed, so many times in his discussion he mentioned that before this thawra, this war broke out, he said, we in our land, our deen was governed by the government. Every bayan was according to what the government wanted. We had no real freedom. Even the teaching of Quran was under the government standards. We would teach what they wanted, what they did not. He said, if everything was growing, one thing was not growing, it was our deen. He said, then Allah honored us with this. That He wanted a nation to be born, a nation of Iman and Quran, a nation in which the teachers are free to teach what needed to be taught. So he explained they were in one Jamia which is known as Jamiatul Imam An-Nawawi. This was in Shaam. And the principal of the Jamia would always explain to his students around him that our real place is Jannah. And a person, when he leaves his house, his object is always to go back home. He says, we have to always worry of going back home. He says, then Allah brought about the thawra, this war, and the peace students who were in the jamia and even teachers had to now flee. He said, when they had to flee, wherever they went, wherever they could flee, through that Allah Tabarak Ta'ala now spread the students of the jamia with that thought throughout the corners of Shaam. And he said, now in every place of Shaam, with freedom, these people are now teaching the true deen. So he says, definitely this is the barakat of what the world would have called a calamity, and they also thought as a calamity. But in everything, he said, they saw nothing but Allah's help and barakah. From the tented area, we went to another area which was now called like small houses. I don't know if you can call it a house. It did have 2 rooms. We were allowed to enter in one, just to see how a person who was once upon a time living a very easy life, and then he was put up in a tent, and then from the tent is moved into a 2-bedroom, very small house. But we met a man who was smiling, who had a very big family. The one that we met, he was very proud to tell us that in the small area of his, he's managing in a very happy manner 2 wives. And Allah has blessed him already with 15 children. And he was happy to say also in the small area, if Allah gives him the chance, he'll take a 3rd wife and a 4th wife also. So one question I asked him, that in such a small area, like how you manage? So the answer that he gave really stuck to the heart. He said that from 2011 till last year, I was living in a tent. So coming into this house now for me is like, life has like changed to a great extent. So from 2011 till now, I was living in a tent. From there we went on to what was then known as another upgrade. And we saw those houses where they are trying to make now very solid structures. So the person comes out from this and he gets now a nice, in that we saw a good future coming for these people. But a lot of help definitely will always be needed. We had a chance to meet someone who does a lot of work on the borders of Turkey and even in Shaam. And one of the things that he said which really made me feel very nice and proud and happy was that he said even during the pandemic that we had in the last 2 years, when many countries of the world were unable to even send funds to the lands of Shaam, and definitely aid is needed all the time. He said whether it was from the United Kingdom, which a lot of money normally comes, or from America, there was different laws put in place and money could not come. He says, but during that time also, during the pandemic, when everyone was in a difficult condition, he said at that time also the people of South Africa, Allah bless them, that their aid was coming at that time also. He said the aid at a time when no one was receiving aid was being distributed to all the corners of Shaam. He said it left such an impact that he said from the small child to the very old person, if the name South Africa is just said at the moment, you will see a smile coming on the people's face. This itself is a very big plus for the people of our country. May Allah Tabarak Ta'ala let it continue, let it increase. May Allah Tabarak Ta'ala let stinginess never ever settle in a person. However, one thing that I felt is that, as we mentioned in the previous message that was passed, as long as a person does not taste something himself, he will never understand the taste of it. This is something that has to be experienced. And by the kindness of Allah, now arrangements are made in such a manner that it's very easy to get in charge with any aid organization and to be able to say that I would like to give my wealth, whether it's my zakat, my lillah, myself. I would like to see the hand who's taking it. I would like to see the family that's taking it. I would like to see the smile on that one face, on that family, or on that village. It is really something to experience, whether it is here in the lands of Shaam or wherever difficulty is taking place. The wording in Arabic is Ni'mal Amir ala Babil Faqir. What a wonderful rich man is he who goes to the door of the poor man to deliver aid. May Allah Tabarak Ta'ala grant us all the chance. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.